When Janata Vimukthi Perumuna leader Anura Dissanayake was elected President of Sri Lanka recently, certain left groups in India went overboard. There was a reason for their euphoria. The JVP or Janata Vimukthi Perumuna is considered to be a communist party in India. Certain sections of leftists in India were tempted to think that the rise of JVP in Sri Lanka marked the revival of communist movement in South Asia. These days the left parties do not have many things to highlight. So the rise of JVP in Sri Lanka was celebrated by certain left groups, or the red flags fluttering in the rallies of JVP were imagined as the site of an impending revival of communist movement. Is the JVP really a communist party? Let's take a closer look into the political history of JVP and the emerging political scenario in Sri Lanka. Welcome to Insights. This is Hari Kumar. Janata Vimukthi Perumuna is considered to be leftist based on some of their economic policies. But the truth is, JVP is actually a Sinhala Nationalistic Party. They are a very sectarian, tribal, sensitive party. Only on certain economic policies they could be termed leftists. If we consider a party to be a leftist or a communist party, we need to analyze or check their political structure, the leadership structure, then their policies, both economic, then social policies, their attitude towards federalism and governance, their attitude towards minorities, etc. Now let's start analyzing the policies of JVP one by one. Janata Vimukthi Perumuna was formed as a splinter group of Communist Party of Ceylon in 1960s. It was Rohana Vijayveera who raised this political party as a major political force in Sri Lanka. And even during his time, the JVP depended Sinhala middle class, then Sinhala working class, etc., as their mass base. Of course, on the economic policies, they were left to a great extent. For example, they wanted to formulate policies that would help the proletarian and the petty bourgeoisie of Sri Lanka. But the target base was just Sinhala population. They were not even the founder leader of JVP was not bothered about plantation laborers or factory laborers. He wanted to organize agricultural laborers in Sri Lanka who were mainly Buddhist Sinhala people. So the targeted mass base was Buddhist Sinhala, and he was very reluctant to antagonize them. And even now, the same policies are being followed. For example, let's check about the policies or attitude of JVP towards the problems of Tamil people. In 1960s and 70s, when there was a burning issue of Tamil plantation workers, JVP actually was against their interests. In Sri Lanka, there are two types of Tamil people. The first category of Tamils in Sri Lanka are people who arrived in Sri Lanka before, say, 1st century BC. They arrived, the Tamil people in Sri Lanka, there is a group of Tamil people who arrived in Sri Lanka in around 2nd century BC, just after Sinhalese people arrived at the island nation and settled there. Then, after 15th century AD, another group of Tamil people arrived from India. They were brought by Portuguese, Dutch, and later British people to work in plantations in Sri Lanka. A vast majority of them arrived in Sri Lanka by around, say, around 17th or 18th centuries. So they were facing the issue of nationality. Many of them didn't have Sri Lankan citizenship, and Sri Lankan government was not willing to give them citizenship. So they were a people who were of Indian origin but have been living in Sri Lanka for generations, and there was a question of their citizenship. The majority Sinhalese didn't want to provide them citizenship. They thought that the numbers would add to the existing Tamil population, and that would be that would change the demography of many areas. So in that issue, JVP actually protected the interests of majority Sinhalese people. Nowhere in the world a communist party would do that. A communist party actually is not confined by boundaries of a country. Communist movement is an international movement. They stand for the rights of workers. But in Sri Lanka, when the issue of rights of plantation workers surfaced in Sri Lanka in 1960s and 70s, JVP was unabashedly siding with the majority Sinhalese interests. That was their first example. Then again in 1987, when there was an accord between Sri Lankan government and government of India to protect the rights of original Sri Lankan Tamils, not plantation workers. Then also JVP was totally against. They even spread canards that Sri Lankan government was trying to sell the interests of Sri Lanka. Sinhalese, they were abandoning the interests of majority Sinhalese population. So on those two occasions, they were totally against the rights of Tamils. Again in 2002, when Sri Lankan government entered into certain agreements with LTT to bring about peace, the JVP was totally against it. All this prove that JVP is a Sinhala extremist party. When it comes to Sinhala nationalism, that is their prime priority. That is their priority. On the other hand, Marxism is something supplementary to them as an icing over a cake. So they become Marxists when it suits their interests, and the core ideology of JVP is Sri Lankan nationalism. So no way it can be considered to be a communist party. Now you look at the leadership of JVP. It is simply made up of Sri Lankan Sinhalese people. There is no representation of Sri Lankan Tamils. There is no representation for Sri Lankan Muslims. How could this be a communist party? How can you call this a communist party just because they follow some leftist policies regarding the economy? If you look at the connections of Sri Lankan or JVP with other communist parties in the world, though India is the nearest nation of Sri Lanka, I have not read anywhere that JVP has got ties with Indian communist parties, be it CPIM or CPI or other left groups. And moreover, the JVP had ties with certain communist parties like the left movement in South Yemen, Ba'athist Party of Iraq, and then they had some connections with Soviet Communist Party also. So why did they establish links with Ba'athist Party and Yemenis Communist Party? The reason was clear. They used to get funds from there. Iraq used to provide funds to this JVP. So that was the reason why they established links with those parties, not because of any ideological reasons. Initially, the JVP founder had ties with or connections with Soviet Communist Party, but later Soviet Union ousted him from the country. He was a student there. And then he turned to China and he established links with Chinese Communist Party. Now you know why China continues to play a major role in Sri Lankan politics. It was there right from 1960s. So what mean is that JVP cannot be considered to be a proper communist party. You need to remember that in 1970s, other communist groups in Sri Lanka called JVP an agent of CIA, a stooge of CIA in Sri Lanka. So many such allegations have been raised against them time and again. And in 1987, the JVP gave membership to armed Sri Lankan Buddhist monks. Now, if you analyze the whole situation, if you consider all the different policies and leadership structure, the goals, etc. of Janata Vimukthi Perumuna, it's an out and out nationalist Sinhala Nationalist Party, which is an extremist Sinhala Nationalist Party, and they have sided with many political parties time and again. Initially, they sided with Sri Lankan Freedom Party (SLFP) of Sirimao Bandaranaike. Then recently, they sided with, in 2007, they sided with Rajapaksa. So, whenever something suits them, they used to take political stance. The leaders have been chancers. They were some sort of opportunity, they're playing some sort of a real politic and opportunist politics in Sri Lanka. They were totally against India initially. Perhaps that was why they refused to establish links with even communist parties in India. JVP used to consider India as an imperialist nation. And one of their main political plank was to oppose expansionist policies of India. They abhorred the influence of India in Sri Lankan politics. But I don't think Anura Dissanayake can follow the same policies at present. Recently, in the beginning of 2024 this year, he visited New Delhi at the invitation of India, Government of India, and he was given a red carpet welcome by New Delhi also. I think AKD has now realized that he cannot antagonize India. When you are an opposition leader, the political stand you take could be because of different compulsions. And when you become the president of a country, your necessities and needs could be different. I think being a very practical leader, resilient leader, Anura Dissanayake is not going to take any anti-India stand at present. But please don't call him a communist. Please don't term JVP a communist party. They are a nationalist party. They are an extremist group, extreme nationalist party. They represent the majority Buddhist nationalism, Sinhala nationalism. So let's consider them as such and enter into a dialogue or engage with them. That's for now. Meet you with another topic next time. Till then, goodbye.